How y'all doing, folks, and welcome back to another episode from the ALCHEMOTO Garage series. And as the title suggests, today we're going to be doing the chain and sprockets finally on the Pan America. Pan America's been off the road now for about 4 or 5 weeks. I've had the tank off it. I've repainted the tank from a dent that we got in the Outer Hebrides tour. We've changed the air filter as well. We've got a Screaming Eagle high flow filter in there now, so all that's back together. Only thing we've got to do is the running gear. So we're going to show you guys what I've purchased to put on the Pan America. We've gone for the SJ sprockets from Germany and the D.I.D ZVMX chain. So I'll bring you guys closer and show you the process of changing your chain and sprockets on the Pan America and adjusting it before you take the bike out for a ride. Okay, so the sprockets and chain I got from MTP Racing in Germany. The deal on them was a lot cheaper than anywhere else, even with the shipping and import to the UK. So that was a cracking deal they had on at the time. And the write-up on these sprockets is second to none. You can see as well, it's drilled sprockets, so a little bit lighter, but quality piece of gear. So the part number for the front sprocket, I'll just bring that closer. MTP 36062. So on MTP site, that's what you want to be looking for. If you just put Pan America in, it'll take you to the relevant products. Okay, and the rear sprocket MTP 36082. Okay, and then for the chain, we have gone for D.I.D 530 ZVMX 2. So that must be the second generation, maybe. So that's what we're going to put on the bike, folks. Okay, folks, the tool that we're going to be using to remove the chain, take the old pin out and flare the new one in on the new link, is going to be from JT Sprockets. This is a JT tool. Okay, it's very, very similar to the D.I.D tool, and there's many on the market that claim to be like the D.I.D tool. But from the reviews, we've found that this pin here is found to be pretty flimsy, and a lot of these bend in when they're trying to extract the link. So I've done my homework on this, and this JT one is about half the cost of the D.I.D one. It's made for heavy duty use. It's a quality piece of kit. So we're going to go ahead and use this. Now you could quite easily just cut your chain off with a grinder if you've got one to hand, but we're going to use the tool and show you guys how this works, and then you make your own mind up then if you're looking for a tool to do your own chain. Okay, so when you're removing your link, you should be on the bottom of the swing arm underneath, but just so I've got some bite against something, I'm just going to leave it on the sprocket while I just grind off these two heads, and that's just going to make it easier to extract the link. But for this purpose, I'm just going to use my little snap-on sander polisher with a sanding disc on it, and then that's just going to enable me to just take the heads off these, and that'll just make it easier for the pin tool. Okay, so we've put the tool on now. You can see how I've got the back of the tool against the back of the chain, and we've wound the pin in now into the center, right slap in the center of where the pin is, the first pin that we're going to push through. So once you're happy with that, 27mm on here, that's a slogging spanner I've got, an old engineering spanner. You can use anything you want, but it's 27mm spanner just to hold the tool straight. And then if you haven't got a ratchet, obviously you can use a spanner, and I'm going to use a ratchet obviously because I'm going to get a little bit more force behind it on the 19mm here. Okay, let's go ahead and tighten that up. Okay, we'll remove that now and check that one and see whether that starts to push through the link. There we go, lovely little hole there appearing. So we're going to move that one over now onto the other one here, which I'll tell a lie, we've already started to press that. Just tighten that one up a little bit more. And there you go, folks. Out she comes. So the tool works all right like that. To be honest with you, I don't think I'd piss around with the tool. I would be most happy to grind it off and just use a pin punch and a hammer. So as good as the tools are, if you don't have anything else to hand, yeah, then use it. But I think for the time it's took me to do that, I could have probably just ground the top off, brought it round to the sprocket side and just used something like a pin punch and a hammer and just drawn it out that way. I think, in my opinion, that would have been quicker. I'm a heavy plant engineer by trade in the daytime. I've spent years removing chains and sprockets off bulldozers and excavators. And I think, and we always do it on the sprocket side, so I think I would use the sprocket, grind this off and just use a pin punch and a hammer. I think that's going to be quicker than using the tool. But you're obviously going to need the tool to flare and rivet the new links on. So that's where it's going to come into its own. Okay, so now that we've got the knackered chain off the bike, we're going to remove the rear wheel and change the rear sprocket and then go ahead and do the front sprocket. So, and then we'll just clean all this up before we put the new chain back on. Okay folks, so for the front sprocket, 34mm, you've got two little tabs you need to lift up, which are locking tabs on either side of the nut. Yeah, if you don't do that, you might just rip them a little bit. If you do want to buy a new nut, then fair enough, but you can reuse them. Just need a strong small screwdriver just to get underneath it and just lift the tabs up, and then you're away you go. So I'm just going to use a air tool. This is an old one. This is about 30 years old. Usually use my snap-on 18-volt ones that are at work, but this old Ingersoll Rand unit never gives up. So make sure you've got the bike in a high gear, and that should give you enough bite then to remove it. Just like that. So we've got one big flat washer on here. So remember to put that back on top of the nut. And then there is my knackered sprocket. So you can see how this has been wearing into the shoulder here. And that's what was causing all the grinding and bits of swarf that I kept finding in front of the bike. So it actually worn down that low. It was sitting on this edge here. Absolutely knackered. 15,000 miles of fun, that, guys. Okay, folks, time for the front sprocket. So the S-Jot ones from MTP Racing, the reason I went with these was the price point. They had a really, really good deal on for the chain and sprocket complete kits. You just paid the extra for the import duty, and it still works out cheaper than anywhere else in the UK to supply the bits for the Pan America for. In the USA, I think it's a little bit easier. Looking online, there's a few places you can get custom things made and different size teeth as well if you want to change the gearing on your bike. So these were just at the right price point at the time. I think it was £179 and about £40 for import duty and taxes. Still worked out a lot cheaper than anywhere else in the UK for a chain set at the time with the sprocket. So this is a 19 tooth front sprocket, and you can see the difference here. Just bring you closer. So the old one and the new one. You see the holes in the middle of that as well, so it's a little bit lighter, so it just looks a great unit all in all. So we'll go ahead and fit that. Okay, as easy as that. So you don't have to go mad with any Loctite or anything on here, because it does have the lock tab. You don't need to worry about it. So all you got to do is spin that, torque it up, and then knock these back down into the groove here. So on each side of the thread here, you'll see just these two recesses, top and bottom. So as long as you got that lined up, So knock them back down. Can't go wrong. Okay, time for the rear sprocket. So of course we're going to have to remove the rear wheel for this. I've already slackened it off. What I usually do is put a block of wood just underneath the rear wheel when you're on the centre stand, just to take the load off when you pull out the shaft on the axle, and then you can remove that then and slide it out all in one. So it's not going to drop, it just keeps the weight off while you just release the axle. And of course all I usually do is put a block of wood just on the other side, tap it with a hammer, and you can see it coming out on the other side. Grab that with a rag. Out she comes. Easy as that, folks. So when it's out, what I'll always do is clean off the axle, put some fresh grease inside before we put it back, and just give the wheel a bit of a wipe over so everything's clean when we put it all back together. Okay, so all I'm doing is just pulling the wheel out enough that I can pull everything out in one and then just change that. Now, I was going to get another cush drive. You can get the polyurethane ones called Super Cush. I think the USA is the favourite for them, but I can't get anything in the UK, Europe so far, unless anyone knows any different, rather than the OEM rubber type one, which they do tend to give way over time. You can see where it's all shiny, and inside here where it's been doing its job, but a little bit too much playing them. So the polyurethane, the newer ones, are a lot better options. So if anyone knows where I can get one of them in the UK, let me know, drop me a message, because that, while you've got that off, you might as well replace that. But I'm not going to do the standard OEM rubber one. I want the poly bush. Okay, with the rear sprocket, once you've got this, just clamp it up in a vise. Take the carrier, pop that in, and then when you put these bolts back, you're going to want a little bit of medium Loctite. Never use heavy strength red stuff. I always go for a medium strength. And again, all you want is just a drop on everyone. Nothing major. And that is just enough to hold everything together without any worry about it coming loose. Just on the ends of it where the threads are, where it goes into the housing, that's all you need. There will be a torque setting for this, I'm sure, in the HD book, as with everything else. But from the ALCHEMOTO, torque setting is going to be MT on these, medium tight. Okay, so when you've got your lovely new sprocket back on the carrier, time to put the cush drive back in. Sometimes it's easier to actually do it the other way around than trying to get the cush drive in on the sprocket. If you're lucky, it'll fall in first time. There you go, 3/4 of the way in. There you go, I'm lucky. And then just roll everything back in position, put the axle back in, re-grease that, and then we're ready for the chain. Okay, so when you shove your axle back in, got your wheel back on, sprocket in place, just remember to back your adjusters right back as well, and then just leave your axle nut loose until we get the chain on, and then we can start adjusting things up. So let's bring you over and have a look at this new chain. D.I.D Super Street, made in Japan, like everything else is these days. 530 ZVMX 2 direct energy transfer. Displacement 750cc to 1400cc. That's your important one there. You can buy a lot of chains cheaper, but that's the important one. You need to make sure that its capacity is up to at least the Pan Am's capacity, which is 1250. So this is up to 1400. So we're good to go with that. Now you can get your gold coloured chains, your red coloured chains, your pink coloured chains, whatever you want. I was, to be fair, going to go for a gold coloured chain for my bike, seeing as I've got a little bit of gold with a few stickers on here and there, but I had no problems with the original chain, and the price wise, I think you pay more, a lot more for a gold chain than you do for a standard. And to be honest with you, it's only going to go dirty after a bit anyway, so hence why we're going for that. And that looks good enough for me. So of course, in every kit you're going to get your new link here with the O-rings. It's an O-ring chain, and the plate here to press on and then flare with the tool that we used earlier for removing the old chain. If it sounds like Beirut here at the moment, it's because we're heading towards November the 5th in the UK, if you're from overseas, which is our bonfire night or Guy Fawkes night, where every Tom, Dick and Harry down the street all over just loves to let off fireworks for fun, scare your cats and your dogs all night. So that's why it sounds like Beirut. Okay, time to lay the new chain on. Okay, when you are putting the chain together, just make sure when you've got your new link here, you've got your two O-rings, and if you can see that, and a smear of grease. They do supply a little bit of grease with these chains. The D.I.D do supply everything, a little bit of grease in a packet there of chain grease. And then your O-rings, you can see here, O-ring, and then the plate to go on the other side. So from the rear, we're going to push this one in with the O-rings and grease installed and just link the chain together. Okay, so back to the chain. You can see here now where we're going to put the plates on these two and press these in. So we've got it in the center of shot there. If you can see that, light's pretty bad. And again, take the grease and then put that all the way around the new one. And then your O-rings on. Like so. And then the plate on here. So obviously we've got to press this plate into position, otherwise you're not going to have enough for the flaring tool to put a decent head on. Okay, so you can just push that by hand and then put the tool on now, and then we'll pull that together. Okay, we don't need the pin on the tool with this one. All we do is grab the tool. Let's just come back a little bit. Grab the tool, and then you want this piece with that towards the back of the tool, like so. And then we'll take that off, and then that's going over the chain, and that's going to pull the link together. You've two settings on the tool. You see A and B. This is staying on A for the time being, and then when we flare the tool, we move it to B. Okay, so like I said, we want that at the back, and then this bit, the front, and that's going to push the link in. So once you're happy that you've got everything centralized, 27mm just to hold everything in place, and then tighten up as you go. I can see that pressing the plate on now. You can't really see it with the camera angle. Okay, so you turn until it stops, because obviously it can't go anymore. So when it's stopped, we're presuming that the rivets have come past the faceplate. So when we remove this now, we'll find out whether it's done the job. Okay, that's perfect. So if you look there, you can see how these are now protruding. If they were flush, you wouldn't have enough to flare over. So if you look at all the rest of them now, like this, we've got to peen these over now with the tool. So we'll show you how to do that. Okay, so we're keeping the tool in the same position as you'd have it for pressing the links in, and that's the flarer. So you can only go so far with this, because when it pushes inside it, it'll go inside this recess here, and then again the tool will stop and you should be at your maximum flare. So it's pretty specific, it's pretty foolproof as long as you know what you're doing with the tool. So remember, this now will set in position B when we put the tool on. Okay, the main thing is now when you're winding it in is making sure that the tool, it should auto center itself. So I'll wind that in and just get it onto the central position, then double check before we start winding it in. You can sort of tell when you rock it there that it's got itself gripped on the center of the rivet. Just trying to keep the camera angle on for you guys and do this at the same time isn't easy. Okay folks, so like I said, you can't go wrong with the tool. It'll only go so far before hitting the face here. So when you know it's closed up completely, you know you've got the rivet in enough. So that's absolutely fine. Happy with that? So now we're just going to adjust the chain. As the night's going on out here, now it's sounding more like Beirut every minute. The bonfire night, and I'm busy fixing the bike in the garage because I need to get back out riding. Anyway, what we're going to do with the back chain is just pull it up a little bit before we measure, because obviously we're on the center stand, so the measurements are going to be different than on the side stand, obviously. So we'll show you how to do that, but first I'm just going to take a little bit of slack out just to even up the back axle, and then we'll go for the measurement. Okay, what you can do is just measure the distance between the threads here on both sides so you know that you're the same and your axle is in center line. Okay, there is various tools you can get for this, but it's just as easy just to measure the distance or to measure the threads at the end behind the nut. Either of them methods, you know you're going to be pretty square. Okay? Okay folks, so final adjustment now for the chain, and the easiest way that I've come across watching a few videos on this in the past, and I've used this before from adjusting the old chain, is it's easy to just use a tape measure from the underside of here, so you can see how the swing arm has got this V on, there's a hole underneath, and just about there is about your center point really between the both sprockets on this straight edge of the underneath of the swing arm. So if you've got a tape measure just wedged in there, I'm looking at on the center stand about 4.5 inches to the top of the chain. At the moment I'm sitting round about 5. So I'm just going to adjust that up evenly on the back now to pull that to 4.5. When the bike's off the center stand, that chain is going to tighten up, so you're going to have more slack when you measure it on the center stand than you will do when you measure it on the side stand. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and just give that a couple of turns now on the back to bring that up to 4.5 inches. Okay, half a turn for good luck, and I'm just going to measure to make sure my axle's central with both sides, and then that is bang on at 4.5 inches. 4.5 inches to the top of the chain. Make sure that the axle's straight. We're just going to measure each side, and then we'll tighten that up, and that's it folks, job done. Okay folks, so that roundabout wraps everything up for me today. That's a full day in the garage to get the tank back on and do the chain work. I think the majority of the work has been cleaning everything down behind the pulleys and whatnot, but at least I know that everything now, all the old grease and everything's been cleaned off, new chain, all adjusted. All I've got to do now is put one screw back on the cover on the other side, and a little bit of wiring work because I've got another install coming next week for, I think this will be the final sat-nav unit that I'll be testing when that one arrives. So I've just ran a wire from the middle auxiliary port on the box at the back of the bike under the seat, under the tank. So I've got a ignition live wire here for any ignition purposes that we need in the future rather than coming up from the battery. So it just makes sense to do that. So just another little mod in place for when I do that. But yeah, the main thing is we've got the bike back on its 2 wheels with a new chain on, so soon I'll be ready to ride. It's been, like I said, at least 4 weeks now since I've been on the Pan Am. So I'm getting an itchy, I've got to say itchy boots then. I'm getting itchy to ride the Pan Am, but hopefully we'll get another ride back on the 48 before that happens. But thanks for watching this video. I hope it was informative for you. Like I said, there is plenty of places you can buy your chain and sprockets from. Just so happens that MTP Racing cut a good deal that was too good for me to refuse, and that's why I went with them. But the D.I.D chain you can get from most retailers. It's a 128 chain, remember, on a 530 pitch. Don't go any less. But yeah, there you go, folks. Pan Am back together. So thanks for watching, and if this is your first time watching ALCHEMOTO, please do hit that subscribe button. Please like, comment and share if you dare. But until the next time, folks, we'll be seeing you later. Thanks for watching.